Facing the Giants. Really hope I didn't peek out my microphone doing that. This movie was made in 2005, which somehow is 20 years ago. I can feel the hair falling out of my head as I say that. I first saw this movie a couple years after it came out when I was in middle school. I remember my first impression being like, wow, I really like this movie. I think I even remember saying the words, wow, that was amazing, after I watched it for the first time. But unfortunately, 7th grade Evan was so easily entertained. I laughed at all the jokes, I thought I had a great message, and in my limited perspective at that time in my life, I thought that this was what a really good movie looked like. It wasn't until I was older that I realized what good movies were, and then I had an epiphany. Facing the Giants is not a great movie. It's not even a great faith-based movie. Now, I know that that's a really controversial statement, but in this video, I'm going to explain why.
Get off the tracks, cause the freight train's coming.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Cinema Christian. My name's Evan, and I am making this video somewhat against my will. I posted a poll the other week on Instagram, and by an overwhelming majority, you people asked me to do a rewatch of this movie. And look, I was going to do it anyway, but I did not expect this movie to fly to the front of the queue like a football. But here we are. Interestingly enough, I think it also proves something that surprised even me. Christians love this movie. Like, we love it a lot. Like, 20 years later, we still can't get enough of Facing the Giants. Even in 2025, people are still fawning over this movie, and it made me curious about how my rewatch would go. I think any movie deserves the chance to age well with its audience. Plenty of movies from the 90s and 2000s are gaining a new life with younger audiences nowadays. So why not this one? Even how I feel about this movie has changed, so I wanted to give it a fair shake. Now, before you go, oh yeah, it's time to dunk on this shambolic Sherwood showing, I'm going to stop you there. Look, this is just not going to be that kind of video. There are plenty of other videos on this website doing just that. Plus, here's the thing. It's simply not fair to dunk on the work of volunteers, an amateur cast and crew, and a church staff. These people are not industry professionals, and that's a really important thing to consider when you're watching this movie. I want to take a more nuanced approach, beginning with the two most important components of any film: story and characters.
Grant Taylor is not capable of winning. He doesn't have it in him. I'm just saying, I want my son to have the best football program possible.
Grant Taylor, the main character, is played by actor, director, and Kendrick brother, Alex Kendrick. From the outset, we know that Grant is a Christian man, a husband, and longs to be a father. But before we really get to know that side of him, we meet a hot-tempered, albeit passionate, head coach of Shiloh Christian Academy's high school football team. Coach Taylor has overseen 6 losing seasons in a row, and the pressure is mounting on him to deliver a winning season, a longing desire to which even Christian schools in the Deep South are not immune. At home, the Taylors struggle with an unreliable car and a smelly house. But the tallest giant of them all is their struggle with infertility, only to have it confirmed by a doctor. The news contributes to the anger, sadness, and doubt that Grant already feels. This culminates in a scene where Grant blames himself for everything wrong in his life. The scene does come across as a little bit woe is me, but the infertility storyline glues the scene together and keeps it from coming unraveled and being a totally unbelievable sequence of dialogue.
Brooke, I've tried so hard. Why can't I win?
You can win. Stop beating yourself up, Grant.
We then cut to a scene in the woods where Grant is pouring out his heart to God in prayer. He's got a Bible open, and this scene feels a little bit too on the nose as well. I think it could have been done a little bit more subtly, but we'll talk about the Kendrick brothers' approach to subtlety later in this video.
I will love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer.
The film's B story follows David Childers, a short, scrawny fella who loves soccer. That might be considered blasphemous where he's from. Anyway, through the encouragement of his wheelchair-bound father, David tries out for a kicker and makes the team, despite a truly horrific performance in front of the coaches and team. But hey, we gotta keep the story moving, so all is forgiven, right? And in fact, David is actually one of the more interesting characters in this story, even if his name is a little bit too on the nose. Talking of characters, there are so many in this movie. Like, so many. I'll just list off the named characters for you right now. We have Coach Grant Taylor, Brooke Taylor, Brock Kelly, Brady Owens, David Childers, Larry Childers, Jonathan Weston, Matt Prater, Coach Bobby Lee Duke, Mr. Bridges, Zach Avery, Claire Peterson, Rob Scott, Jeremy Johnson, Alicia Houston, Mrs. Janie Carter, Stanley, no last name, just Stanley, Alvin Purvis, Neil Prater, Dr. William Jordan, Steve the Janitor, interesting, Dan Riker, Joshua Webster, Mitch, no last name for Mitch either, Mr. Jones, Stan Schultz, Barry Van Cleve, Jackie Ward, and finally, Mrs. Bridges. Not to mention, they somehow shoehorned in a cameo of Georgia head football coach Mark Richt. This was probably meant to be exciting and cool, but if you're not from Georgia, you probably have no idea who this guy is and the name means nothing to you. And that's how I felt. This doesn't even include extras who were given the classic paratextual names like Announcer Number 2 or Kid on Field. I can appreciate that they wanted each and every person involved in the project to feel important, but it came at the expense of the dialogue and the writing, and it felt downright clunky at times. I won't lie, I forgot the names of several key characters throughout my rewatch, and I was paying attention and taking notes.
Can you believe what Buford Hitcherson said about me? He said I can't be the coach of this football team no more. Well, I can't believe that. Barbara St. Cheeseburger said the same thing to me down at the salon yesterday. I can't believe that. Larry Childress told me the same thing just the other week. This is getting out of hand.
Seriously, the dialogue feels like this at various times throughout the movie. It's out of control. We gotta have fewer characters in our movies, people.
Neil Prater, Alvin Purvis, Luke Ray. They said I wasn't capable of winning. Call me dead weight.
Films need not only relatable characters, but they also need memorable ones too. Alright, back to the team. They continue to endure loss after loss until a chance meeting with a mysterious old man who roams the halls of the school praying for the students every day convinces Coach Taylor to change his methods.
Coach Taylor, the Lord is not through with you yet. You still have an open door here.
After Grant refocuses his team to honor God first, and through the power of a Bible study montage, things really start to turn around for them. They start to win games, set to the sounds of Third Day's Come Together, which I have to admit was a really nice touch. I had completely forgotten about this montage, but it really works for me with that choice of music. Oh, that reminds me, I have a fun fact about this song that you may want to know. So, at the time, Third Day's music was distributed by a company called Provident Records. Well, during the post-production process, the Kendrick brothers wrote a letter to Provident asking for usage rights for the song in their movie. The label exec wrote them back and said, "Let me screen the movie first before I make a decision." Well, long story short, the whole board got to see the movie ahead of time, and they were all so moved by the powerful story that they not only agreed to allow Come Together to be used in the final edit, they ended up picking up the distribution for the whole movie itself. How cool is that? At this point, if you've seen any football movie or show like Friday Night Lights, Woodlawn, or the classic Remember the Titans, you probably know where this one's going. Shiloh makes it all the way to the state championship game. David kicks the winning field goal in a dramatic sequence. And yes, Brooke Taylor finds out that she's pregnant, although it's in a bizarre scene involving a case of mistaken identity and a wrong patient chart, I guess. Anyway, it's not a very believable scene for me, but it is dramatic, so I give a point to them for that one.
It's high enough. Does it have the distance? It does.
And so we have our happy ending. The epilogue reveals a jovial Grant Taylor playing with his toddler son against the backdrop of a couple of state championship trophies, with a visibly pregnant Brooke looking on. All's well that ends well, but that's where the problems just get started for this movie. I'll say it here, and I'll probably say it in future videos as well. Story is everything. When filmmakers like the Kendrick brothers prioritize and even emphasize the messaging in their movies, the story inevitably suffers. The story in Facing the Giants is compromised by its strong messages. And it's a shame because it's a story with potential. But I'm not going to sling any further insults at the story because I'm saving my ammo for its piss poor theology and messaging.
Ooh, can I say that? I guess I can because I'm not monetized yet. Subscribe to the channel so I can feed my family and be more careful about my word choices.
Jesus is giving his Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. And in the midst of teaching about loving your enemies, he says something really interesting in verse 45. For he gives his sunlight to the evil and to the good. He sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. The greater implication of this teaching is that even though you love God and you honor him with your life, that doesn't automatically guarantee you blessings of any kind that you want. But in facing the giants, it teaches us that if we have enough faith, if we work hard enough, and if we honor God enough, we'll be guaranteed to win the battles and defeat our giants. And the bad guys, well, they lose because they didn't honor God. Unfortunately, this is just not biblical. We live in a fallen world, and even as believers, we're not guaranteed anything good in this life. Anything good we do receive is a blessing from God, but it's certainly not because of anything that we've done. The poor theology presented in this movie creates unrelatable outcomes. How much more interesting a story could it have been if the Taylors never got pregnant, but instead maybe chose the route of adoption? Or what if David missed the field goal kick, but the team was still able to celebrate all that God had done for them in the face of defeat? Or what if Grant still lost his job even after delivering a winning season? Unfortunately, we never get to find out because all the tension points in the story end up resolving, and a little bit too conveniently at that. There is a silver lining where it appears that Shiloh has lost a football game and they still resolve to have a post-game prayer session. But we never get to see the fruit of that because they end up winning when the other team gets disqualified for cheating. It's so frustrating because this is the opportunity that the team has to show their newfound character in the face of defeat. Alas, there's no payoff because they just keep winning everything because they're blessed by God, or so we're supposed to believe. It's unrealistic, it's unbiblical, and it's kind of where they lose me. While they don't go down the abyss of Joel Osteen's prosperity theology, they certainly teeter on the edge of it. Aside from the issue of infertility, no one's problems in this movie feel relatable or even real. You know, a Christian movie or documentary that deals with the real pain of infertility would be super compelling. But the car troubles, Grant pouting about parents in the school not liking him for his bad coaching, said parents freaking out about their son's potentially wasted talent and lost scholarship money, the dead rodent in their house, even the problems that the football team themselves face. It all feels so trite, and it really reeks of first world problems. And the seriousness of all their problems gets totally undermined by the way the film ends anyway. Is there anything about this movie that still holds up in 2025? I dove deep into the archives and discovered some old behind-the-scenes footage of the making of this movie. At heart, I'm a sucker for good cinematography, and to me, there's not much better than a compelling story presented in a visually beautiful way. And while Facing the Giants isn't winning awards for either of those, I do want to call attention to its cinematographer, a man named Bob Scott. Now, I don't know much about Bob, but I got to reading about how this movie was made, and it made me like him a lot. In an interview, Alex Kendrick revealed that during pre-production of the movie, he was approached by a man in their congregation who only had one camera, but had a willingness to help out in the film's production in any way possible. That man was Bob. I have no idea what industry experience he had prior to shooting this movie, but it was abundantly clear he brought a wealth of knowledge in shooting sports. Every single football action sequence in this movie absolutely holds up after 20 years. In fact, it's one of the best parts about this movie for me. So shout out to you, Bob Scott. Wherever you are, man, or if you're watching this, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear about your time on set. This movie only had a $100,000 budget, which in the world of filmmaking is scraps. Remember, the Titans had a budget of over $30 million, and that would have been considered modest for the time. What Sherwood Pictures was able to accomplish is nothing short of impressive. And hey, if you worked on the movie, whether you were a best boy, a grip, an extra, a PA, reach out to me, leave me a comment, let me know what your experience was like. I'd really love to hear from you.
So making Facing the Giants again, we took a step up, but we still had so much to learn, and so that was what was amazing.
There's no doubting the sincerity of the Kendrick brothers. These guys are lovers of film just like you and me, and since Flywheel came out in 2003, they have set out to create good movies that honor God. I can't even fault them for that. You know, I went into this rewatch expecting to find so many more things that made this movie terrible, and yes, I still stand by the fact that the theology is a hot mess in this movie. But the more I went in depth about the behind the scenes of this movie, the more I learned about the people that were behind it and what they valued bringing into the production. And the singular element that I discovered that everyone who worked on this movie shared in common was a sincere desire to share Jesus with others. One really interesting conversation point came up when I came across another interview with the Kendrick brothers on a Christian radio show, and I gotta shout out the host Wally for asking the one question that I've wanted to ask the Kendrick brothers the most, but their response was not what I was expecting.
When you see a Kendrick's brother movie, you know, it's a faith-based movie, and you know it's a Christian movie. Like, you guys are really, really overt with your faith in that. You lay out the plan of salvation at some point in the films and stuff. Has anyone ever come to you guys and said, hey, why don't we tone some of this stuff down a little bit and maybe it'll go to a wider audience? Have you guys had those discussions with people?
Only people that hate Jesus.
Okay, yeah.
So, no, you know, we need both kinds of movies.
Sure.
We need movies that have it in its subtext, and we need movies that are a little more bold. And so we would say there's room for both kinds. We feel led to be kind of bold and out front with our messages, but we mainly want to edify the church, call the church to be the church.
I think the Kendricks may have set out to be evangelistic with their films at first, but since then they have really come home to their audience, the capital C Church. Make sure you subscribe to my channel to see an upcoming video about another Christian film franchise that did set out to be evangelistic at first, but has abjectly failed in doing that. Alex Kendrick was also quoted in another interview saying that he doesn't care about pleasing film critics, only about pleasing God. Hey, no arguments there, Alex.
There you go. There you go. He's heavy. I know he's heavy. I'm behind strength. Then you negotiate with your body to find more strength.
I set out at the beginning of this video to give Facing the Giants a second chance at life. And did it hold up? Well, yes and no. Like with most Christian movies, there's some good and kind of a lot of bad. For the sake of science, I will leave my categorical ratings on the screen now. By the way, you're allowed to love this movie just as much as I'm allowed to mostly dislike it. It's a creative work, and therefore it's subject to scrutiny just as equally as it is praise. But don't take my word for it. If you've never seen this movie, it's definitely worth at least one watch through. Come to your own conclusions. Keep in mind the production constraints, the intended audience, and I think you'll reach the end credits feeling at least a little inspired. The larger point is that Christian movies and shows are getting better. Look at The Chosen, for instance. That show is fantastic. There's a steady stream of great projects coming out of Angel Studios, and even our favorites, the Kendrick brothers, have taken leaps and bounds since the days of Flywheel and Facing the Giants. It's not all bad, right? If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button below so that I can get my healthy hit of dopamine, and leave a comment and let me know what your thoughts are about this movie, or just Christian movies in general. If this is your type of content, please consider subscribing to the channel to see more. I plan to cry tears of joy when I reach 100 subscribers. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.
Look up, Brock. You're in the end zone.